Void Bastards is easily one of the most artistically unique and genuinely fun experiences I've ever had involving video games, and when talking about underrated indie titles, it's always the suggestion that comes right out for me. As soon as you start, you load right into the tutorial as a criminal stuck in the Sargasso Nebula trying to repair a ship named the Void Ark. During this tutorial, you learn how to use the map and scavenge for resources, but your introductory period is cut short as a group of pirates begin to board your ship. Quickly attempting to make your escape, you get to the air level. Wait, what? The game expects you to die and concludes the tutorial there, offering you a new character with either pros or cons. We got the Smoker con, which causes our new guy to cough at random moments. Stealth won't be an option, and death is going to be no distant stranger. I'll be expected to die quite a few times. Bax issues us some food and fuel, but it's only good for one jump. Each jump costs 1 fuel and 1 food, and you have to decide which derelict ship you're going to board to scavenge for more stuff or move past. The first ship is generally pretty easy and won't have any hardcore or super enemies to fight.
The nebula has caused citizens to assume irregular forms.
Our first and most common enemy is the janitor. Their attack and overall difficulty is easy when in a one-on-one, but can get overwhelming if you're swarmed. This big bastard is one of the bigger, tankier, and more annoying enemies in the game. It's called a screw, and it's named after what it'll do to your ass if you happen to get caught by one. This mission was mainly for fuel to reach more shipwrecks, so I'll be moving on to the next shipwreck I decided to explore. With some of the stuff I salvaged on the previous ship, I built myself motion detecting bombs named bushwhackers. Then I took advantage of some on-the-map fuel cells before docking with a new ship. This new ship had the necessary equipment to build a stapler, which was something I definitely wanted to upgrade to from the pistol. This wreck didn't have many screws or janitors, so I wasn't worried. Juves are generally pretty easy and die in one shot, but have great potential to swarm you, and I didn't want any part in that, but the prospect of getting a stapler was too great for me. Besides, I needed food. Something I appreciate about this game is that just before you start, it shows the layout of the ship. It's not something the developers had to do, but it's super appreciated. The very second I stepped onto the ship, I had a run-in with this gigantic fucker in the break room, which is where most of the food supplies would be. I immediately backed out of the room and locked the door, hoping that I had basically just dealt with the only screw on the ship. It was alright though, because someone left their sandwich on a desk for me. I didn't need the break room. The lights flickered as I entered the next room before I was promptly hit in my back with a shot. I whipped around to find that the source of my problem was a gunpoint, one of the ship's natural defenses.
I'm a dead ass. Pimp.
These can get extremely annoying and unhelpful. I tried and failed to hop through this busted window, so I turned around and entered the office through its door and salvaged a coin before moving on and facing a janitor. Eventually, I made my way to the helm, which is the best spot on the ship to be. You can download salvage locations from the map directly and even enemy locations for a merit fee. Once I got the location, I realized that the main loot was in the FTL room, so I made my way down there. I got cornered by a gunpoint and I was quickly running out of ammo. I tried peek shotting it, but I ran out of ammo way too quickly. My only other option was to Hail Mary it, which went about as you would have expected. I recovered the loot and ran towards the entrance, but sadly the gunpoint ripped me to pieces before I could even get out of the FTL room.
Client expired.
Once I received a new expendable named Carter, I took the first available mission. I didn't know what the spiker was, but the name sounded badass and that's all I needed. It had some juves and janitors, nothing too serious at all. The mission was relatively short as I wasted some little people and a janitor, found the med blower I needed, and headed out without a hitch. I built the spiker and set sail for the CNT license boat, and had no choice but to stop for food and fuel. The ship had few screws and janitors, so I thought I'd be okay to go. I brought my newly built spiker along for the ride and boarded. Once aboard, I looted a few drawers and earned myself some merits, which I in turn used to unlock the other drawer and get transit regs. I was excited to see what I was going to be able to build with those. I quietly made my way to an office and looted some staples. The rest of the mission was quiet.
Get fucked.
Almost. I returned to the ship with a good amount of food and fuel as well as other useful items. I was able to build a stapler and a gunpoint manager. Taking the controls of my ship, I went ahead and pushed forward until I saw this neat little thing on the map. It looked like some kind of interesting loot, so I went ahead and grabbed it. It was a food crate, which was great, but also had a gene twister. This could take away pros and cons and give you new ones. I lost the recycler trait I had and gained tunnel vision. I had also run out of fuel, but thankfully I had a warp key. I warped to the ship that had the line printer objective on it and got ready to board, completely forgetting to check the enemy types. Oh well, feet first into hell. Upon starting this particular mission, I figured out what tunnel vision meant and also saw that the power was off. This essentially meant that all doors were inoperable. No big deal, I just have to restart the power myself and not run into any tanky bastards or gun points. The first thing I did was head through the break room and towards FTL for fuel. Once I was done with that, I saw text alerting me to the stomping of a screw. I snuck through the atmospherics room quietly to get to the generator where I turned the power on. My next plan was to get from the atmospherics room to the helm, and I needed to pass through security to do it. While I was there, I went ahead and looted before catching this guy.
Come in.
I turned around and disabled security, allowing me to pass through smoothly. Upon seeing the hulking beast that stood before me, I decided I wanted to take him on. I had surprise on my side, so I poisoned him and went for what I thought was a crit spot. It wasn't. I quickly moved past him, delivering more shots as I slid from an oil puddle into a much larger room. I had to hold my ground against him. I figured he might have been the only one on the ship, as I hadn't seen other enemies up until that point, so I threw everything I had at him. This resulted in all of my stapler ammo being shot, and he still had minimal health and was inflicting some serious damage. I went for a Hail Mary and took out my spiker, and the combined damage over time is what ended him. I had 2 shots left, but I did it. And surely there couldn't be anybody else aboard this ship that was nearly as tough as that guy. I went to set out into the rest of the ship, opening a door. The moment I stepped forward, he slightly turned. I froze, like a deer in headlights. Once he saw me, I entered into a full panic mode. I ran as fast as I could through the doors until—
Remember me, motherfucker?
Client expired.
These are just some of the more ridiculous things that can happen inside of this game. As I said, it's one of my all-time favorite recommendations to recommend to anybody, and I barely see anybody playing it. The subreddit barely has anybody even participating. If you like what you saw in this brief, short, minimal video, then maybe you should give it a download or go buy it on your platform of choice. The citizens will be waiting for you.